Hey guys, Lytane here, and thank you for checking out this video. It fills me with so much hope that you would do so because we are in the third week of Danganronpa. Crazy, I know, but today I'm going to be filled with a little bit of despair because we are not going to be having a look at one of the mainline games in the series. Instead, we're going to be having a look at one of the spin-offs. So today, I'm going to see if Danganronpa Ultra Despair Girls is worth it. Danganronpa, another episode, Ultra Despair Girls, is a game that has a title that is a little bit too long. It was released in 2014 in Japan and 2015 in the rest of the world. The story for this game is set about 6 months or so after the first game and before the second game, so it's in the middle. The game starts with a nice morning routine with one of our heroes, Komaru Naegi. You might recognize her last name as she is the younger sister of Makoto. We soon realize that her nice life isn't all it's cracked up to be, as she is in fact a prisoner. She has been kept within these walls for the last year and a half. Man, that would send anybody insane. Until one day when a Monokuma robot breaks down her door. As it's trying to kill her, she escapes only to run into one of my favorite characters of all time, Byakuya! He rescues her and tells her to go to the diner across the street in order to be extracted from the city. He will deal with the Monokumas. Getting out of the apartment, she realizes that the whole city has started being attacked by these Monokuma robots. Luckily, she is armed with a megaphone that Byakuya gave her. This can hack and kill those pesky Monokuma robots, and she flees the city only to be caught by our antagonists. Meet the Warriors of Hope. Children that are absolutely crazy and are killing all of the adults. This is all a game to them. How twisted are these little kids? And to make it worse, they have Komaru as part of the game, so they let her loose in the city in order to hunt her down. That's when we meet another person, or should I say people? I don't know. You might recognize him. It's Toko and Genocide Jack, but why is she helping you? Well, doesn't matter, we now have our Ultra Despair Girl, so it's time to get out of that city, stay alive in the sadistic demon hunting game. The first thing I have to mention is that there will be some slight spoilers for Danganronpa 1 and 2 in this review, but I'm going to try and keep them to a minimum. But it's very hard to do so because this game is set after the first game, so of course there's going to be story ties to it. Even though this game is set before the second, it was released after the second game, so it actually has story ties to that. Also, it has story ties to Danganronpa 3, the anime, so it has ties all around, so of course there might be some slight spoilers going around for all of these, and I'm sorry for that. Also, even though it has all of these ties to all these different games, the story in this one is not 100% required for the overall Danganronpa universe. It can be skipped if you do not want to play it, and if you do want to play it, then you get introduced to the new characters and you get an expanded story. So it's up to you before you even go into this game if you want to play it. It is a side game and a side story. I don't want to start by talking about the story of this game. I instead want to start with the gameplay, and oh boy, this is drastically different than the two games before it. Instead of being a 2D murder mystery visual novel, we have a 3D third-person shooter game with some visual novel elements. You heard it right, this is like Gears of War, but with Monokuma. It is an over-the-shoulder shooting game, and I, for one, welcome the change. In the game, you control Komaru, well, for the most part anyway, and she is armed with her megaphone hacking gun. That is the only weapon that you get in the entire game, though you will be given different ammo which does different things, and that's where the gameplay variety lies. There are 8 different types of ammo in this game, and each one of them are very, very different. The first is Break, the main one that you'll be using. It's essentially just a normal bullet and it breaks Monokumas. The second is Move, which has unlimited ammo because it's just a utility. It is there to activate certain machines and move them, so that makes sense. The next bullet type is Knockback, and it causes the enemies to get knocked back. And then we have Dance, which causes the enemies to, you guessed it, dance. The naming regime for this game is quite simple, and I like that because you can just look at the name of the bullet and fully understand what it's going to do to the Monokuma in front of you, so you don't even have to think about it. The bullets are also used throughout the entire game, and each one of them is very useful because they all do something different. But weapons are only as good as the enemies, and here we'll be fighting nothing but Monokuma, but he does have a few variations and each one of them behave differently. The standard Monokuma will slowly rush towards you and try and swipe at you, whilst the bomb Monokuma will explode upon death and throw explosives at you. The Siren Monokuma will call in reinforcements if you are spotted by it, but you can use this to your advantage because if you make them dance, they start a dance party and will draw everyone towards them, making it easy to kill everybody. There is quite a variety to the enemies here, but not too much, which does mean they become a little bit boring after a while. The other bad thing about this game is the AI. It is not very good. Most of the time, the enemies have a very poor idea of where you are, and they will be rushing at you very slowly. They'll get caught on corners, and they won't even attack you in some of the instances. It's not very good. Because of this, most of the enemies do not feel like a threat. The exception to this are the beast Monokumas, which can kill you in like one hit if you aren't careful. They are always a threat, and they are actually a challenge and have fairly decent AI compared to the rest of them. I played through this game on the hardest difficulty, but even then it was an incredibly easy game. Aside from the very start when I was learning how to play and how the controls work, I didn't have really any trouble throughout the game. Most of the AI is bad, so it's fairly easy to get rid of enemies. There aren't usually too many enemies to fight on the screen at one time, and the fights are usually fairly well spaced out. Also, the Monokumas will go down in one hit if you shoot them in their eyeball. All of them are weak to this though, not all of them will go down in one hit, but most do. And because they rush at you very slowly, you can easily line up your sights and just shoot them in the face. After you get a headshot, or an eye shot I should say, the next bullet that you're going to shoot is actually bigger, making it even easier for the second bullet to get a one-hit kill. It makes the game incredibly easy, and even though on the hardest difficulty, really isn't much of a challenge. But there is one part of the game that does have challenge, and that is the Monokuma arcades. These are minigames of sorts, where you have to figure out how to do the task that is given to you on the screen. Most of these will have you try and kill all the enemies in one shot, or one explosion, or something like that, but there are a few others like trying to figure out a password, and these can be pretty challenging. First off, you have to plan how to do the task, and then you have to actually pull it off, and sometimes that's pretty hard. Other times the broken AI gets in the way and you fail, which is really annoying because you needed an enemy to get into a certain location, but then they got stuck on a wall or in a corner or something, so you fail. Passing and failing doesn't have much of a difference. For passing, you get some praise and a nice little animation and a better score at the end, which I'll go over later. Failing, it means you usually have to just fight all the enemies that were in that room, and that's it. There are 5 chapters in the game, and each one of them plays out fairly similarly. At the start, you are given some kind of destination that you have to go to, and in order to get there, you have to walk. And then you'll run into some bad guys and fight them. And then you'll get some story because you got to have some story. And then you will walk again. And then you will fight. And then you'll get some story. Then walk, then fight, then story, walk, fight, story. And it just keeps going in this cycle. Sometimes it'll be walk, story, fight, just to change it up a little bit. But that's it. You'll be doing these same things on repeat for the entire game. There really isn't much of a change to it. That is until you reach the end of the level where you'll do something different. Fight a boss. Yeah, this game has bosses in it, and each one of them are different. Usually, you'll have to use whatever bullet type you earned in that chapter in order to defeat them, so there's a little bit of a clue there. They aren't particularly hard either, but they do require you to think a little bit because they're not just like shoot them in the one weak spot. You actually have to expose those weak spots. So it does become a fun, nice little challenge. They're not overly difficult, but they are definitely a nice change of pace compared to what you've been fighting the rest of the game. I have talked about the gameplay quite a bit in this review, but in actual fact, the majority of your time playing this game will be spent listening to the story. This game is so close to a visual novel, it isn't funny. In fact, I might even call it a third-person shooter visual novel. Every 10 to 15 minutes of gameplay will have 10 minutes worth of story. I don't mind this all too much because most of it is interesting and it furthers along the characters and the plot, but it really does break up the flow of the game. Instead of condensing some of the story down and expanding the gameplay, they seem to have done it the other way around. The way the story is told is also inconsistent. At first we have some anime, which looks fantastic by the way, but it's only for select scenes, so don't get used to it. Next we have the fully 3D scenes, and these don't look so good and feel very blocky. Also, that sweat look on Komaru is really bad. Lastly, we have a bit of a hybrid of both types. We have a fairly basic animation for our 3D models going in the background, whilst a 2D sprite on the screen is then telling the story. The sprites and models both react to what is being said, so if somebody gets angry, the sprite will show an anger, and so will the 3D model. Maybe they'll be chucking a tantrum. But it does look a little bit janky. I mean, it's better than just having boring, non-moving characters around, but it looks pretty funny at times, especially if you leave it on a character animation. It's just really silly. Whilst the presentation might not always be the greatest, the story itself is fairly compelling, and I couldn't wait to find out what was happening from start to finish. It just kept me going. But even before I started the game, I had a little bit of a problem. If you have watched my Danganronpa 1 review, you will know that I did not like a character called Toko. And guess who is one of the main characters? Toko. Now, I don't like her because she has this defeatist attitude and narcissistic ways, and it's quite annoying to me, and I really don't like that character. And we are going to be spending a whole lot of time with her, so Now, Genocide Jack is a little bit better, but oh man, her voice can get a little bit on the annoying side if you're listening to it for too long. So once again, Now, over the course of the game, she does have quite a bit of character growth, and she has many scenes that you can unlock to expand upon her character. So by the end of it, I could tolerate her and I didn't hate her. I think she did fairly well, and I liked the direction that they took the character in. So at least that's better than nothing. It's good that Komaru is such a fun character because she really helped carry the game and helped me get through it. Otherwise, if it was just Toko, I probably wouldn't have gotten through it. Continuing on with the characters, the children were a mixed bag to me as well. I really like the concept, and most of the time they're pretty good. The reasons why they are doing what they're doing in the game though is a little forced, but I guess it works. The rest of the cast are interesting, though Haiji Toa really annoyed me, especially because he has the same voice actor as Leon Kennedy from the Resident Evil game, so I kept seeing him whenever he was speaking. The major problem I had with the story is that I didn't believe that these kids alone could take over Toa City. I didn't believe that the adults were so bad at fighting back either. As the story progresses, you find an adult refugee camp, and they are full of despair because their friends and family have been killed and the children have, taken over the town. They have just been in this spot for so long. Except when you think about it, it's only been 3 days. How could they have fallen into such despair so fast? The scale is just off. Talking about the scale being off, this is a great segue to talk about Genocide Jack and how overpowered she is. Now, most of the game you'll be playing as Komaru, and you will be given the choice to turn into Genocide Jack at your leisure. When you do so, you will be using up a battery, which is a time limit for the character, which is great, but when you use her, she is literally invincible. Nothing can hurt her. She does melee attacks which are very powerful. It can take out nearly everything very, very quickly. Even those beast Monokumas, which are the hardest things in the game, are a joke to her. It is ridiculous. She is so overpowered and makes the game so much easier. Now, I don't get really why they did this. Well, I understand a little bit. According to the makers of the game, they wanted to have a mode if you wanted to play through on very easy, and a character that will help you get through all of the game if you just wanted to experience the story. Because this is very different from most visual novels, getting through the game might be a little bit more difficult to some people. And that's fine. They wanted to have something that would make players be able to get through the game, but Even on the hardest difficulty, she's still overpowered, so I don't get it. It's just ridiculous. Something else I don't quite understand is the upgrade system in the game. Now, you thought Genocide Jack was overpowered. Well, you can upgrade her and make her even more powerful. Like, what is the point of that? She's already invincible. It's so silly. You can also upgrade Komaru's weapons by giving it more strength, status effect, and ammunition, but I honestly don't know what the strength and status effect do. Like, they seem to have no bearing on any of the weapons. If you use break, it still takes the same amount of bullets regardless of if you upgrade. Maybe dance lasts a little bit longer? I'm not sure, because I just don't see a difference. Ammunition, though, does work, and it makes you, hold more ammo, so those are great, but aside from that, the upgrade system is literally pointless. You can go through the whole game without even touching it and not even notice that you didn't touch it. It's silly and definitely not needed. It should have been expanded upon or changed or something. I just don't see the point of it. Alright, let's finish this all off with the extra modes that this game has to offer. The first is a short story about Hagakure. You know, Yasuhiro from the first game. Another character I didn't like. First Toko, now Yasuhiro. Ugh. Apparently he was in the town when all of this stuff was going down, and he has his own adventure, but I'll talk about that more in another video. This game offers 3 difficulty settings which affect how many coins you get, how easy it is to get an A rank, and how Genocide Jack and the batteries work in your game. In the absolute easiest version of the game, the batteries regenerate by themselves, making it easier to get through. With any spare Monokuma coins, you can also unlock the movies, the artwork, and the songs that are in this game. And I have to say that the songs in this game are absolutely fantastic. Every Danganronpa game has great music, and I have to say that the intro song, the Ultra Despair Girls main theme, is probably one of my favorite songs in all of Danganronpa. It is so great and so different to everything else that is in this series. Also, can anybody answer me why this video is in the gallery twice? I don't see any difference to it. But this game does have collectibles! These help expand the world more, like the hit lists that show you the loved ones of our main heroes from the first game, including Komaru, and they were all trapped in this town just like her. But that's only one type of collectible. We also have notes which let you know about a person before they died and their secrets. It is really interesting, and some of them are really well written, others are really strange, but they are all there and all flesh out the world. Lastly, there are the books, which add some bonus story and character growth to our 2 heroes, and I really enjoyed finding these. They're probably my favorite collectible in the game. In my opinion, I think that Danganronpa Ultra Despair Girls is not worth it, because the game is barely a game. The combat is incredibly easy, the AI for the enemies is barely existent, and most of the time you're not even actually playing a game because you're listening to the story. The actual gameplay that you will be doing is so shallow. There aren't very many enemy types. They're all very easy to deal with, and it's just not challenging. When you have Genocide Jack in your party, then what's the point? She's invincible and can do anything. Even the upgrade system doesn't do anything in the game. There's just really no point to it. But just like all of Danganronpa, that story is fairly good, and I was laughing through so many different parts of the game, and I really enjoyed finding those books because those bonus scenes were usually pretty good, and I loved the character growth, and there were so many funny scenes there. I also really liked those animated cutscenes. They were gorgeous, and I wish there were more of them in the game, but alas, they aren't. And I understand why. They're like for special events and moments, so that's fine. The characters are a little bit of a mixed bag. Some of them I really liked, some of them I really hated, and then some of them, like Toko, got better. But the fact that there is barely any game here, I just can't recommend it. If you are desperate to know every single piece of story to the Danganronpa universe, then yeah, go and play it, but don't expect too great of a game here. Maybe you could watch just the story online or something like that, because that's all you really need, and the gameplay itself is something that can definitely easily be skipped. So guys, tell me what you thought about Ultra Despair Girls. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you find the game difficult? Because personally, I thought it was very easy. Maybe it's because some of those Gears of War skills rubbed off on me and now it made this game too easy. I don't know. I don't think so. I just think the game was just really easy, even on that hardest difficulty. Also, if any of your comments are spoiler related, try not to write them down below. Instead, I'm going to be releasing a spoiler video in a couple days, if it's not already out, so you can write your spoiler related thoughts over there. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Hey guys, Lytane here, and thank you for joining me in this video. Cat, again? Really? Literally the first thing I've said. Go on. That's why you shouldn't have your cat in your filming room. But this game does have collectibles!